All right, hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. My name is Brett Pontecorvo. I am super excited to have you guys here with me today. If you guys are chiming in, I know some of you have already let us know, but just be like, hey, I am coming in from wherever, New York City. We've got some people. I am muted. Let's see here. What about now? We got any audio there? Let me know if you guys can hear me. Check, check, check. I'm going to assume that we can hear a little bit. Get a little bit more audio. I'm waiting for a comment to come in here. Just make sure. Yep, we can hear you. Beautiful. All right. Fantastic. I'm getting very low from some people. So I'll just make sure I'm up on top of this mic here so you guys can hear me. So, friends, first of all, pro tip of the day. This morning, I had all sorts of crazy audio issues, and I had some friends who were able to help me out. So if you guys are like, how can I figure out how to grow? How can I figure out how to problem solve, move quicker, get through stuff? Surround yourself with people who are able to help you get there. I mean, can it get any better than that? Also makes the journey a whole heck of a lot more fun. But now that we got all this up and running, friends, you might know me from the blog and YouTube channel Live Keyboardist, where I help keyboard players kind of make their live rigs work. Over the past couple of weeks, we have been going through the foundations of Gig Performer. What makes Gig Performer special? How is it different? We've met our co-founders, Neboja and David, who are not just software engineers, but also musicians. And it's one of the reasons why this program is so different from other programs. It's that it was designed by people who actually had a need for the product. So see here, we've got Gordon coming in from NYC. We've got, let's see, some others we've got from Brazil. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. But hey, last week we took a bit of a break from our foundation series, and we met with Trey Gunn and Robert Fraze. It was a fantastic episode. If you watched last week and you were like, hey, I really got this thing, I learned this, I took this away from that interview, I want you to let me know in the comments, hey, I learned this from Trey. I know my personal thing that I took away from the interview is that Trey kind of works from a point of friction. And when he builds his setups, he kind of is paying attention to like what he wants to go for, and then he builds it rather than trying to sort of know all of the details before he's ready to act on anything. He just starts building, and he's like, hey, I wish I could do this. I wish I could route this signal in this way, or whatever it is, and then he builds it. And so I think there's something to be learned there just from like saying, hey, you know, we don't have to have all the answers when we start out, especially in Gig Performer, because as we've talked about in the past weeks, it's got a visual setup. So we don't have to be super concerned about if we are going to be able to do what we want to do. We only have to be concerned about leaving ourselves the headspace and the experimental space to sort of get there. So that was my takeaway. If you had any from last week, let me know, and we'll kind of continue forward here. But if you have anything to share, feel free to do so. So today we are talking about the MIDI in and MIDI out blocks, right? So we have audio in, we have audio out, but we also have MIDI in and MIDI out. And for me, as a keyboard player, that is where my ideas enter Gig Performer. And so these are really powerful blocks, and they have the ability to do maybe more than meets the eye. And so I actually wrestled. I was like, are we going to be able to do a whole episode on MIDI in blocks? And I think the answer is an astounding and 100% yes. So I want to get into it here. I'm going to pull Gig Performer up on the screen. And what I have open right now is just an empty Rackspace, okay? And in my wiring view, I have two sounds. I've got piano and strings, but if I play right now, nothing is happening. And so we need to create a way for the MIDI to get to our VSTs. So if I hit Command P and I choose MIDI in, you're going to see there are some different options here. We've got my favorite one. I've got the basic MIDI in Omni. And for now, I'm actually going to choose that. But you can save a favorite if you want. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up. So this is what the MIDI in block looks like. You see a lot of the usual suspects here, right? We've got transpose, we've got ignore global transpose, which actually is maybe not a usual suspect, some channel mappings, keyboard spit velocity. We're going to kind of go through all of this. But before we do that, it is sometimes extremely important to not just have an omni option, right? Because we don't always want to be receiving MIDI from every instrument we have plugged in to our setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click on this block, and I'm going to say change MIDI input device, and I'm going to choose to at home Keylab rig, which I am at home, and this is my Keylab 88 setup. And it's asking me, do you want to change all similar MIDI in blocks in every Rackspace? The answer is yes, because I don't want to have anything that's receiving MIDI from anywhere. And this is another way that Gig Performer kind of makes your life a little bit easier, right? If you're switching rigs and all of a sudden you need to change your MIDI in blocks, it's going to automatically update them for you. And this works similarly to everything else, right? If I want to be able to connect my MIDI in to my keyboard, I'm going to drag it. And let's see here. We don't have audio. Oh, we do have audio. Here it is. Okay. And here's my piano sound. Very simple. But what if we need to do a little bit more? The MIDI in block is going to allow us to do that. So let's have a look here at some of the simpler things that are available to us. And then we're going to get a little more complex, because as you start to play with some of these features, it just kind of makes you go, what if, right? So I'm going to hit this transpose button. I'm just going to say we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So it is exactly what you think it might be. But what's nice about the transpose feature in particular is that it can be used differently than in some other softwares, because we can have as many MIDI in blocks as we would like. So if I were to duplicate this and run another wire in and do a 12 transpose here, right? When I press one key, I get an octave. Okay, so it gives me kind of the ability to say, oh, actually, what I really want is a fifth, right? And then I can do the same thing here, and it's going to allow me to do this pretty quickly and with any amount of detail that I want. Now, something to note is that we're not hearing your keyboard. Interesting. Okay, we're going to do our best with what we got today, friends. Oh, you know why we're not? I'll tell you why. Thank you, Glenn, for letting me know. I bet we can hear it now. So one of the reasons why I kind of lost my train of thought here. Oh, so something else that's really nice about this is that a lot of these things can actually be mapped. Okay, so I have right now nothing on this front panel, but if I wanted to have the ability to map my global transpose, that's something that would be available to me. And I'm going to show you a little bit more in just a second here, some of the things that are available for mapping. But it's nice to have that option. So let's go over here back to wiring. And we also have this channel mapping section here. Now, most of the time, I don't find that these channel mappings are something I go to a lot. However, there was one instance where I thought, hey, maybe it could be used for this. So any of you guys are using Contact, let me know in the chat. Just be like, yeah, I use Contact. If you use it often, you will probably know that when you open a second anything, right, inside of it, it's going to open it and it's going to do it on a different MIDI channel, which I think is, it's a choice. They made a choice. So now within this piano block, I have another instrument. And what I could do, if I wanted to, is access that second instrument by saying, hey, I'm going to take my channel 1 and send it to channel 2. Okay, so now I am getting that string sound. Whereas before, I'm just getting the piano sound. And the reason for that is because that is on a different channel. I've got Carell Davis popping in. He's a Contact user. I've got Gordon saying, yes, Contact. It's a great sampler. David wrote in that I am a hippie, which is just like him. But David is also a major Contact user and does insane, amazing things with it. So it's a really powerful program. Okay, let's get back to it over here. So MIDI in. We can do the transpose, and we can use the transpose to even create variations if for whatever reason we wanted to have that available to us. So if I enter into edit mode and pop a gray knob here, I have the ability to map my transpose to my MIDI in block. So I'll choose my at home and I'll choose transpose. There it is. So now my transpose is accessible to me from my front panel. So if I were to create a new variation and have a different transposition, that is available to me. Now, something else that is nice about this is we're able to create keyboard splits, and we're able to create them in a slightly more interesting way than in other situations, right? Because again, we can have as many MIDI in blocks as we would like to have. So we don't have to limit ourselves to sort of, if there are any Ableton users here, we're actually going to pull out Ableton in a little while. You don't have to limit yourself to kind of an instrument rack where things are laid out. You can really have as many layers of splits, and not just by key, but also by velocity. So let's start by just creating a pretty simple split. So let's say, for example, I only want to have the notes below C3 available to me on piano. So keyboard split makes that pretty easy. If I click this learn button and I hit my note and then I unlearn, now anything down here is available to me, and everything up here I have gotten rid of. So it's no longer going to be something that sounds. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so I've seen this before, and you have seen this before, but when we start to stack things, again, simple ideas stacked on top of each other create things that are relatively complex. You have other abilities. So it maybe is partially a key split, right? But what if perhaps you just wanted both patches that you need for a particular tune on your keys, right? And you're saying, hey, like, maybe I need this transposed up 12 so that I can have something pretty easily accessible to me on the lower half of the keyboard that sounds like I'm not playing there, and I want to access my strings perhaps on the other half as if they're not transposed. So I can go in here, and you saw I mapped that pretty quickly, remove this transposition, and this is still my other block duplicated, right? So now I'm going to have my lowest note be a C, my highest note be up here, and now I have the option to have that keyboard split, and it's in the same register, okay? This can be really useful if you have a song that maybe doesn't have a ton of sounds in it, and you want to be like, hey, for the first part of this song, I'm playing at the bottom of my keyboard. For the second part, I'm playing in the middle. For the third, I'm playing at the top. You can do that, okay? And you can do that by stacking these blocks together, and it's a nice option to have. Okay. So let's keep pushing forward here. So we have our keyboard split. We have this invert keyboard, which it gets a little funky. I'm going to tell you this. If you are using Gig Performer and you have not checked the invert keyboard button on your MIDI in block, your homework for this week is to go check the button. It inverts the keyboard. It will mess with your head in the most beautiful of ways. It's a bit of an ode to, I'm forgetting, the Weather Report, Weather Report people. So it's worth checking out. It's a nice thing to have in there. I can't use it. Messes with my head. But maybe it doesn't mess with yours. It's a nice thing to have access to. Okay, so we've got our keyboard split. Let's talk a little bit here about our velocity. So when I'm playing, you'll notice right now I sort of have this 1-to-1 velocity ratio, where if I've got 76 coming in, I've got 76 going out, but we're not limited to just that. So if I open this up, I can say, hey, I really want this to be on the quieter side of things. And what's happening, you can see, is here, I'll play another chord. Whoa. I've got my keyboard split. That's what's happening there. But you can see I've got in at 54 and out at 29 because it's remapping it for me. It's scaling it in such a way that I'm able to change the velocity, even though that's not how I'm playing. And there are two uses for this, right? It could be useful if you are in a situation where you're playing on a keyboard that you don't know and you need it to respond to your fingers in a better way. But it could also be useful in a situation where you want different patches to pop out more or less, right? And you can use two different MIDI in blocks with two different sets of scales to create that for you. which is cool. It's a nice thing to have access to. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this here because scale versus constrain are a little bit different. And I had to really think about this one for it to make sense to me. But here's what's happening, okay? When we're scaling, we are remapping things, right? So like, in other words, shouldn't do it that way. In other words, a MIDI note comes in and it gets changed according to whatever scale I set up here. With a constrained situation, I get the same thing, except that anything outside of those parameters is not played. So for example, anything, it's hard to get this keyboard very low. So anything down here makes no sound, right? Whereas if I open this up, I start to get sound. So this is an opportunity for you, if you're a keyboard player and you want to separate sounds by velocity input, you can sort of create that functionality. And I have to say, we just had a blog post written by Nemanja, who is all over our forums, who's all over the blog, and who is quite possibly the best proofreader in all of existence, written about exactly how to do this. He goes into a lot of detail. So if you're somebody who's really looking for an in-depth way to use, I'm gonna pull him up. Here he is. He's the guy. He's with us today. This is Nemanja. If you're looking for an in-depth way to be able to kind of layer your sounds by velocity, this is an awesome place to start. Okay. So we've talked about this constraint. We've got our ability to kind of create whatever works for us. Oop, didn't mean to do that. Okay. So one other thing I want to just touch upon here is that there are some built-in curves that are kind of just generally good places to start. But if you, for whatever reason, need a very customized curve, you can draw it in. So, you know, you want it to look like this for some reason, you have the opportunity to do that. And there's a smooth button as well. So this is a nice thing to be able to do. You're not limited to one particular set of curves. David told me not to do this. I'm going to show you anyway. There's also the ability to create kind of crazy exponential curves within it. And even though we're not talking about this today, this type of thing, in my opinion, works really well with the probabilistic sound designer. So we're going to get to that in one of our episodes. We're going to talk about the probabilistic sound designer. We also have a video on our channel already of how to use that. It's really nice to have that option for curves, right? So we're kind of limitless here. Now, if you guys were with me 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how I had this moment where I accidentally hit a button that changed the volume on one of my piano patches. And at the most important moment for my piano sounds to work, all of my piano sounds were gone. And that is why this area exists over here. Okay, this is our event blocking area. If you are not using event blocking currently, use event blocking. And I'm going to tell you why. We only want to control the things we want to control. We want to have no accidental things happening. So if you block everything except for note on, note off, and sustain, what you're going to have is just those things and the ability to have any of the other things you want created using widgets. And widgets are more flexible. If you haven't checked out our widget episode, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about widgets. It's going to give you everything you need. So that's for our event blocking. Now, I want to do this. Let's pop out of here for a second. There's also a very cool ability that this has called Enable MIDI Merge. Okay, so now my MIDI in block, if you'll see, has this this in plug. I'm sure there's a real name for that, but it gives me the ability to now send MIDI in. So if you are using something that you can create maybe a step sequencer or an arpeggiator, you can send it into your MIDI in block. So I'm going to open up an instance of Pigments here. And Pigments does have this ability. So if I go into the sequencer here and turn it on, okay, now I have this arpeggiator thing happening, and I can send it out. So let's do this. Where did it go? Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to do a MIDI in. Okay, and for this one, no, that's fine for now. Okay, so here's my MIDI in. I'm going to run it into Pigments. I'm going to run it out of Pigments. and into this MIDI in block. And now I'm getting whatever Pigments is sending out, which right now it seems like it's on sequencer. There we go, not arpeggiator. So this type of a thing is going to allow you to take a MIDI in block and utilize it a little bit more. It does give you a little bit more ability though, right? Because now if I wanted to, for whatever reason, have this go to a different transposition, I have the ability. So let's do 0. So now I've got no transposition, right? But I can also, let's just say, bypass this altogether and go straight in. So now, if I were to transpose my second one, but not my first one, I'm going to get both of those things happening at the same time. So using multiple MIDI in blocks gives you ability that you might not have otherwise, right? If I was trying to recreate this in a DAW, I would just need to create multiple tracks. So this is a really great thing to have access to. And let's see if I missed anything here. We're going to come back for these monophonic options. But this is a good time to pause for questions. So if I have covered anything too quickly, you have a question about MIDI in blocks, let me know. We're going to answer your questions. We've got Nemanja and Nebojša here to answer your questions as well. And while we're waiting for those questions to come in, if there are any, I want to show you just a little bit about what's possible when you combine the MIDI in blocks with widgets. Because when we start putting widgets into the picture, we start to really see Gig Performer is your instrument, right? It's a piece of your instrument, but it also is your instrument. And the more you allow it to be your instrument, the more flexibility you have, the more protection you have when your rig doesn't work, when you need to switch to somebody else's rig for whatever reason, when you buy a new piece of gear you want to start implementing. So it's sort of our safeguard, right? Okay, so let's see here. Basic MIDI in ability. So I want to show you this front panel. So we've got some interesting stuff happening here, and I want to double check my wires. Yeah, so for those of you who are wondering what I'm doing, I need to make sure that I can hear you. And so I'm rerouting my audio, but nothing crazy is happening here. This is only because of the live stream. So on the front right now, what I want you to notice is that as I play, things are moving on this front panel. All right, I've got a question coming in, so I want to pause and answer it before we move on here. Can I use multiple blocks to remap notes to play different notes? So a custom remap for my left hand to play samples. Yes. If I'm understanding you correctly, yes. Can I use multiple blocks to remap notes? Yes. So you can use as many MIDI in blocks as you want, and you can also ignore global transpose. So here, for example, let's see if I can answer this in a little bit more detail. If you were to have, let's see. Well, here we already have multiple MIDI in blocks, right? But if you can transpose this however you want, section it off however you want, and then you can enable global transpose. So if you were transposing something on a gig level, it wouldn't be affected. I hope that answers your question, but you can plug and play as many MIDI in blocks as you want. Audio Link, if that doesn't answer your question, clarify a little bit more. But I'm going to say yes, you can do a custom remap for each of your hands. You can single out one note in a MIDI in block, say the lowest or highest note on your keyboard, and tune it up or down one or more semitones for when you need a lower or higher note than your keyboard. Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't do that. Gordon, I'm going to assume that you're playing with not 88 keys. So yes, I would say that's possible. This is a very interesting question. Okay, so yes, this can be done in Gig Performer. I don't know if this can be done without scripting. Nebojša, can this be done without scripting? You know what? It could be done without scripting. Let's do it quick. Let's do it quick. So what you could do is, let me share the screen. If you have a MIDI in block and you transpose your MIDI in block all the way down to 127, what's going to happen is all of your notes will be the same. Oh, you can't see my screen. Okay. So all I did here was create a MIDI in block. So if you create a MIDI in block and transpose this all the way down, all of your pitches coming in will be the same starting note. Okay. Then you're going to create another one and enable MIDI merge. And you're going to wire this in. Then you transpose this to be whichever pitch you want. And then every note that's coming through, is that going to work? I guess. Oh, you know what it is? This shows the original pitches. You know what I'm going to say? I'm about 99% sure what I just did will work. If it doesn't work, then reach out on the forum. But I've done this before in other programs, so I'm pretty sure it's possible. And David just wrote in, ripchord VST lets you define chords and attach each chord to a single note. The other thing you can do is you can have widgets send MIDI notes out. So is that, Neboja, do you want me to pull you in? Yeah. Neboja, welcome to the stream. I can't hear you because I think you're. Oh, hold on.
Sorry.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah,
You're
no,
good.
it was muted. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. One of the templates that come with Gig Performer 4 under cool stuff, the first one actually is called automatic triads with one finger only. And basically it does it all. You can change the key, you can change it if it's a minor or major, and just press one key, it'll play the triad. So just open Gig Performer, go to cool stuff, choose the first template and play a note and you'll see it plays the triads.
Yep. And that was answering this question too, right? This guy here, making MIDI aux transform single notes into chords.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Neboja. Yeah. So lots of ability here. Gordon, yes. Yes to this. Audio link. I love that you're doing this. Once you get it working, can you let us know and share it in our forum or share it on our Facebook page? Because this is a very interesting, cool thing. Okay. You are very welcome. Let's jump back to it, friends. Keep the questions rolling in. We want to make sure that you are answered. So I'm going to remove these blocks and get my bearings here. So you'll notice when I'm playing, I've got certain things that are moving in response to the keys that are coming in. So I want to show you what I'm doing and maybe why it might be useful. So when I go into edit mode, let's start with this velocity follow situation. So this is mapped to my MIDI in block. So if we go to the wiring, here it is, mapped to my MIDI in block. Okay. But what I've done is I have mapped it so that it is taking, well, I guess this one is actually telling me, hey, follow it. But the guy next to it with velocity follow value is changing based on how hard I hit the keys. So let me open this block up and we'll head back to the panel. So you can see, you'll see, oh, this is maybe the wrong one. But you can see it jumping here as I'm moving, right? So all it's doing is taking this value and putting it into a block. Now you might be wondering, why is this useful to me? And at one point I wondered that too. And then I started realizing when you're using widgets, you can have the velocity control other parameters, which is what's been done here in this block. So check this out. I've mapped this to follow the incoming velocity. And I've also mapped it to a group, right? So in Gig Performer, you can have all of the groups in the alphabet. So what you'll notice is as these notes are coming in, this fader is changing. But it's actually changing backwards. Stay with me here. It's changing backwards. And the reason that I'm having it change backwards, which one did I flip? I flipped this one. The reason that I'm having it change backwards is because I've created a scenario where I can have a drone automatically start when I turn a Rackspace on, and I can have the volume of that duck underneath my keys when I'm playing loud and come off of my keys when I'm playing quietly. So one final MIDI mapping thing here before I demo this. Your MIDI in blocks have the ability to send notes. Okay, I'll make this bigger. So inside your MIDI in plugin, right, you have all of the notes on your keyboard. And when you press either of these buttons, they're grouped together. So when I hit it, they're going to go at the same time. It sends audio. It sends audio to that device. Okay? So if I were to turn this on and be here, right, I have the ability to have this drone start as soon as this is loaded, which is very nice. Is this going to die out? It is. Okay, so if I'm in another Rackspace, I'm coming up to a song, and as soon as the song starts, I need some audio to come in. Boom. There's my audio. But now I'm playing piano, and I need to create a world in which you can hear the piano. I have it set up so that this general volume, right, which is attached to the actual volume control of my synth, is changing while I'm playing, okay? So as we begin to stack these MIDI in parameters, we can really create an instrument, right? We're no longer just mapping widgets and VSTs. Now I have one instrument that makes these two sounds. Now, the same type of stuff can be done using the note follow and the note follow value parameters, okay? So same deal, but as I move notes, you'll see this is kind of going with my notes. Now, this to me makes the most sense to be used if you're trying to kind of create like a filter that follows your pitch. So you have a filter, you want key tracking, well, you can create key tracking using this. And if you guys were following along with our MIDI in, you can also scale this widget. So if you don't want this lower stuff here to happen, you can get rid of it. You can do it more eloquently than I just did, but you have the ability to make it so that you never have a filter cut all of your sound off, which can be really nice. Now, just on a more practical note, you'll see that I've got, let me make this bigger for you. You'll see that I've got minimum note and maximum note values mapped to widgets. See if I opened the right one here. Yeah. So what's nice about this is if you want to have different key ranges for different variations, you can set that up within these widgets. And then as you scroll through, you'll have the ability to change what your key ranges are. So if for some reason you need your key range to be different at a particular point, you have the ability to do that. Very, very nice stuff. Now, there are some of you who may be using external gear, and we have not forgotten about you. We are going to we're going to do it right now, but the MIDI Out Block is also very powerful. I want to show you a little bit about what you can do with program changes inside of Gig Performer, and I'm showing you with the full knowledge that this might not actually be the best way to do it. But Gig Performer allows you to think in terms of program changes. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to show you how to use program changes to send to an external device so you have the info. But I'm also going to show you how to do it with Rackspaces and why that might be preferable. So what I've got set up right now is an FM8, which is just a subtractive synth. Okay, and what you'll notice is if I go over here to my programs, I've got 3 presets. Now, Gig Performer will allow you to switch between presets using program changes if you want. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to move this off the screen for now, but I'll bring it back when it makes sense. So what I've done is I've added a label, and this label is just designed to show you a particular value. So in other words, whatever like PC change, you want to see what that is. And you want to be able to set that program change to send it out to whatever controller you need. Now, I've mapped this to the MIDI in block, right? Because even though this thinking is backwards, I want to say this when you can see my face. Even though we are sending program changes out, right, it has to come from the MIDI in block because that's where the signal is starting. So I'm mapping to the MIDI in to send it to the MIDI out. We're going to do program changes. I see Nebojsa shaking his head. We're going to do program changes from the MIDI out block as well. But in this scenario, we are sending a program change from the MIDI in block to FM8, okay? So that's why we're doing this. And that's it. So I've selected program change, and my custom caption is just a value, okay? Now I'm going to bring this back up on the screen here so you can see. I have a preset called Bronx, okay? Sounds like this. You maybe can't hear it. I don't know. I might have to rewire. But number 8 is the preset Bronx. So I need to send program change 7 to FM8 in order to make that work. Now, program changes and the widget values are not the same because this goes from 0 to 100, but program changes go from 0 to 127. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the heart of it is that we need to do a scaling thing differently. And inside Gig Performer, because this was built by musicians, not just web developers, we've made a way to do this, okay? So I know that I want the value of 7, and all I have to do to create that is type 7M, enter. Now you'll see up here it says widget value updated, right? So now, when I switch to 7, you can't see my synthesizer anymore. When I switch to 7, you will see a jump to preset 8. And I've done the same thing with all of these other situations, but what I want you to notice is here's my sound, and now when I switch to dirt, which is my next preset, my sound is gone. And this is not ideal. Like 90% of the time, you don't want your sound to just cut off. So you can send program changes out, and this is how you do it. However, you can also create a situation where you have a similar setup, but you have the setup happening in Rackspaces so that you never get a cutoff. Okay, so check this out. Here's my FM8 dirt, okay? And here's my sound. Now here's Bronx. And when I switch back and forth, the sound doesn't automatically cut off. And that's because if I do it within a Rackspace, I can enable MIDI patch persist. Okay, so if you're trying to change patches and you are thinking about your life in terms of program changes, I encourage you to think a little bit more in terms of Rackspaces. However, certain gear is going to require that you are able to send program change messages. So you have the ability to do that. But the more stuff you can keep inside Gig Performer, the more times you have opportunities to use things like MIDI patch persist, which can be very, very helpful. Okay, so let's see here. I've lost my notes, friends. If you have any questions about any of this, please let me know. We are going to move to the MIDI out section, okay? So MIDI out blocks are very similar to MIDI in blocks. However, they are the opposite. So instead of sending MIDI in or receiving MIDI in, you are sending MIDI out. So you'll see right now I've got MIDI out to my IAC driver. Now, this is because I am not currently running any hardware. But if you are, you can send your MIDI out wherever you want to run it to. But I'm running it to my MIDI IAC driver. Now, if you're a Windows user, you do not have an IAC driver, but you can download something called Virtual MIDI that will do it for you, and it's kind of a similar setup, okay? So here's my MIDI out block, and we've got some basic functions here. So we've got MIDI channel 1, right? So I can say, hey, anything that comes into this block is going to go out on this channel. I've got transposition options, I've got keyboard split, and I've also got other MIDI messages to send, okay? Now, in this area over here, this happens as soon as you select a Rackspace. And it can be really awesome in a host of situations. But today, I want to show you how it works with Ableton, because that's what's most relevant to me, and it may not be most relevant to you. So realize that MIDI out blocks can be used with hardware and should be used with hardware. But because of the way that I run my setup, this is the easiest way for me to demonstrate for you. Okay. So what I want to start with saying is I have an empty set here, and all I've done is I've labeled out some songs, and these songs don't exist. There's nothing in here at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Gig Performer to send a CC message from the MIDI out block to start my song when I select my patch for that song. So let's go over here to my MIDI out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the edit button here, and it's going to give me this MIDI helper tool. And I want to add a new MIDI event. You can have lots of MIDI events, so you don't need to limit yourself to one. But I am going to choose a CC message. I'm going to say, hey, let's do 13, because why not? I'm going to send the value of 127. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I want this to be read by Ableton as a, hey, this button got pressed, even though there was no button that got pressed, right? And I'm going to send it on channel 1. And that's it. Now, there's a send now button, and this is important. So here's Ableton. Oops. Here's Ableton. What I want to happen is when I go to song 1, I want Ableton to start playing the audio from song 1. So I'll enter MIDI mapping mode, select song 1, and choose send now. And you'll see now song 1 is mapped. So we'll see if that actually worked. When I send it, song 1 started. Try one more time, just to make sure. Yep, song 1 started, and you'll see this clip here. So what's happened is I have created a world in which I'm playing a song. Maybe I'm playing, whatever song it is. I'm playing this song, and all of a sudden I need to switch to another tune. Well, as soon as I start this song, Ableton follows along because I have sent a message out of Gig Performer into Ableton that says, hey, start this song, okay? This is really nice to be able to do. Now, one other thing I thought of that can be particularly nice for these MIDI out blocks is that people spend a lot of money on controllers that allow you to send different messages from the same pedal. But we don't have to do that when we're using Gig Performer because we can create widgets that send those messages. So let me show you what I mean. If I were to create a Rackspace that just had 3 pads, if I hit 3, it'll drop them down. Maybe we do this. Get some green, get some red. Okay. I can send CC messages out. So I'm going to choose my MIDI out, and I'm going to type CC, and I've got all of these options. So let's say I want to do 85, MIDI out, 86, MIDI out, 87. Well, now I've just created 3 widgets that send these values out, okay? So why is this helpful? Well, if I want to have verse, chorus, bridge of a track that I'm running, I can have it happen. So we'll enter MIDI mapping mode again. I'm going to choose here, send it. Didn't get received because I'm in key mapping mode. As it goes. Okay, let's try that again. Boom. 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 So now, from Gig Performer, I can jump around any tracks that I want to. Now this gets better because I can have as many Rackspaces as I want using these CC messages, and I can do it in such a way that the buttons on my controller never change. So you become a master of triggering what needs to be triggered from within Gig Performer without having to buy anything expensive. You can use any controller you have, which is fantastic. But what if you need to control an instrument? What if you need to control an instrument? Let's answer that question. So let's say inside song 1, I want to control an instrument. Well, what do? I'm going to create a new MIDI out block. I'm going to make this bigger so you can see it. MIDI out. Okay. I've got David saying something to me here. Okay. So here's my MIDI out block. And the reason I created another one is because I actually want to send this on a different channel. I want to send it to channel 2. And what I want to have happen is I want my MIDI to come in from my keylab, and I want it to go out to channel 2. Let me just make sure that this is coming from my keylab. It is. Okay. So now all that I've done is I've taken my MIDI that's coming in from my keyboard, and I have sent it to channel 2. Well, over here in Ableton, I have channel 2 set up. So when I play any notes here, I have Ableton creating sound. Now, this could happen just as easily with a hardware synth, right? You're using your MIDI out block to go to your keyboard, and then you have to take the audio back into Gig Performer. Now, why do you want to do this? Because the more that happens in Gig Performer, the more control you have. I've wrestled with coming up with a good word for this, but Gig Performer is not just live performance software. Gig Performer is your command center. Okay, so you're using it to control your external synths. You're using it to run your lights. You're using it to do your audio effects. Whatever's happening, if you keep it all in Gig Performer, you have one place to control it from. Having one place is really good. It's a real benefit. And no matter what computer you're using, I can't even remember, I was talking to David about this yesterday. Gig Performer goes back a lot of operating system iterations. We have support a decent ways back. I don't want to say which operating system it is. I can't remember. But you don't need to upgrade your machine to do this, okay? Which is nice. So when I hit a key, you see that I've got audio here. And what I want to do now is, let's see here, Windows 7 or 10.9 on OS X. Okay, so we have some wiggle room. So if you are wanting to use something more powerful, but not wanting to upgrade your system, Gig Performer is available for you. So check this out. You can see I'm making audio here, but what I want to do is I want the audio to come back into Gig Performer. I set this up ahead of time, but then some things changed. So now you're looking under the hood here. Black hole, and then I'm gonna go. Yeah, 1 and 2 should do it, I think. Oh no, we'll do this. You're looking under the hood. That's okay though. Live stream audio, and we're gonna call this channel 3 and 4. Maybe that'll be useful for someone somewhere. So I'm going out to channel 3 and 4. And now I'm going to use Gig Performer to pull that audio back in. Okay, so let's create a mixer. 4 channels. And let's take that audio that's coming in on 3 and 4 and run it into the mixer. And we're going to see, friends, we're going to see if this works as well as I hope that it does. And we're going to send this out to 1 and 2. I will send it to 3 and 4 because I don't want to hear my loop here. Family moment, friends. Something about the way that I set this up the first time worked, and something about the way I'm doing it now is not working. And that is okay. Let me explain what should be happening here. So my audio is coming in. I'm getting a feedback loop because I'm streaming is what's happening. But the audio is coming back in because I've sent it to channel 3 and 4 from Ableton. So it's coming out of here, and it's coming back in here. So in the event that you are not live streaming when you're performing, and there are ways around this, you're having the ability to pull that audio back in and manipulate it within Gig Performer, okay? So this can be really nice and really powerful if you're working with external gear. This is the MIDI Out Block. I want to pause here for a moment because we've just covered a lot of different things. Carell just wrote in, this solves my problem of wanting to control Ableton from Gig Performer. Beautiful. So happy that it solved that problem. Some people seem to be getting some value out of this. Let's see. We got a question here. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I can send Sys-X from Nektar Pacer readout and program change to show my readout that I created a panel to represent the pacer. Can I send Sys-X from Nektar Pacer readout and program change to show on my readout? It's a good question. Naboja, do you know the answer to this one? I'll tell you what I do know. Gig Performer does handle Sys-X messages, and I know that in David's live setup, he sends text back and forth from his pedal using Sys-X. So my guess is that it is a possible thing to do based on what I do know. However, we have a great community forum, and the pros there will be able to answer you. So I would say check that out. We have any other questions? Shoot them in here. But if not, that is okay. So let's just do a quick recap here because we've covered a whole heck of a lot of stuff. So our MIDI in blocks are important because they allow us to manipulate incoming MIDI as many times as we want. So we can create keyboard splits, we can create chords, we can create layers. We also demonstrated that we can do some simple widget mapping to control our MIDI in block so that we can alter what MIDI in is doing through variations or just because we have some need to do that. We have the ability to follow velocity and notes. We have the ability to create drones by sending notes from our MIDI in block. So let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. If you feel like we covered way too much content today, definitely let me know that as well. We are going to be back. We've got one more question from Audio Link. Actually, before I answer that question, next week, we are going to build a song from scratch using all of the concepts that we've done. We've got a vote that is going out live to let us know what song to do. So if you want to get involved in that vote, it's going to be on our Facebook group right after this stream. So definitely check it out. It's going to be a ton of fun. So Audio Link, back to remapping. Using your transpose down 127, I could have the walking bass all put out the same note number so that it plays a ride cymbal at the same note regardless of what the bass note is. Yes. So you've made something that works. I'm so glad that that's working for you. Is there a solution where GP is not changing the PCs by changing the rack? I'm wondering if you can ask that question in a little bit more detail. So this is what I think you mean. Can you send a program change message at a specific time that's not on starting a rack? The answer is yes. You can do that with a widget. Okay. So if you create a widget and you map it to a program change message, you can send it at any point you want. Can I find all the live events in this channel? Sorry, I'm new. Welcome. Yes, we have a playlist on the YouTube channel of all our live streams. Edwin, who I know from Live Keyboardist. Hello, welcome, Edwin. Hi, Brett. I know that you use Arturia Keylabs. Is it possible to use the widget sync option with knobs on the keyboard so its MIDI value is updated automatically? Yes, that is possible. I'm going to tell you, though, Edwin, I don't actually do that. But yes, you could do that. Gig Performer makes it possible. Yes. Okay. I think we've covered a ton, guys. If you have any questions that we didn't get time to answer today, let us know on the forum or in the Facebook page. If you would like to vote on which song we create next week, poll on the Facebook page. We've got 3 songs to choose from. You can also submit your own option. We are going to do the whole thing. We may not do the whole thing in 1 week. It depends how robust it is, but we are going to do the whole thing. MIDI in blocks. We're going to do the MIDI out blocks. We're going to do the sound design. We're going to do everything that you need to set it up. So you definitely won't want to mix it. This is a question. I want to show it on the screen here. The answer is yes, you can do it. And also it's going to take me too long to explain how to do it. However, ask it on Facebook or on the community forum, and we will answer you, because you can absolutely do this, and we want to help you get up and running as quickly as possible. Not only is this possible, Gig Performer makes it pretty easy to do. Friends, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. Make sure you click like and subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends about Gig Performer. We want to have as many people getting the opportunity to participate in this community as possible. And we'll see you all next Thursday, 1 p.m.